All good?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to East Gippsland Shire Council's meeting of the 22nd of June 2021. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting, youtube.com/c/eastgippy.tv to enhance the accessibility of its meetings to the broader East Gippsland community. These recordings are also archived and available for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate times during the meeting, any members of the gallery who are addressing the council will have their image, comments or submissions recorded. No other person has the right to record council meetings unless approval has been granted by the chair. The Victorian Government has amended the COVID-19 Omnibus Emergency Measures and Other Acts Amendment Act 2020 that enables council meetings to be conducted by electronic means through video conferencing until the 26th of April 2021. The Minister for Local Government reissued the Ministerial Good Practice Guideline for virtual meetings on the 20th of October 2020, outlining the provisions relating to the Local Government Act 2020, allowing councils to attend council meetings electronically, and the requirement where council meetings are open to the public will be satisfied where the meeting is live streamed. The amendments do not preclude councillors from attending a meeting in person in the council chambers. Members of the public are invited to view the council meeting live streamed by following the link on council's website or Facebook page. Item 1.1 on our agenda is Item 1.1 on the agenda is the recognition of traditional custodians. East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai-Kurnai, Monero and the Bidwell people as the traditional custodians of the land that encompasses East Gippsland Shire. We pay our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders past and present. A member's attendance can only be recorded as present where the member can confirm that they meet all three of the following. They can hear the proceedings, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. Councillors must confirm all of the above conditions to be noted as present for the meeting. A quorum will not be made if these conditions are not met, and the meeting will be adjourned until a quorum is met or postponed if a quorum cannot be met. If technical difficulties are encountered by council during the meeting, including with live streaming, we will adjourn until resolution of the issue or postpone to a later time and or date. I'll now confirm with each councillor in turn that they can see, hear and be heard by each other, and to note assurance from each that the location they are participating from is secure to ensure deliberations are confidential. Councillor Stowe, can you see and hear us?
Yes, Mayor.
Can you confirm that the location you are participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Yes, Mayor, it is.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Councillor White, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can.
Can you confirm that the location you are participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Certainly, Mayor, most secure.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Buckley, can you see and hear us?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Can you confirm that the location you are participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Item 1.2 on the agenda is for apologies. Mr. CEO, do we have apologies?
None have been received, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 1.3 is for declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors, are there any declarations?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just going to declare a conflict at item 5.2.3 in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Any further conflicts to declare? I see no further. Item 1.4 is for the confirmation of the minutes, and this is for the council meeting of Tuesday, the 25th of May 2021. Councillors, do I have a motion that those minutes be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Greason. Is the motion seconded? Thank you, Councillor Crook. Is the motion opposed? If not, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, the motion is carried. The next meeting of this council will be on Tuesday the 13th of July. I don't think that's correct.
Mayor, the
Yes.
29th.
That's right. The next meeting of this council will be on Tuesday the 29th of June 2021 to be held in the Corporate Centre, 273 Main Street, Bainsdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Item 1.6 is for requests of leave of absence. Do we have any requests, Mr CEO?
No, we don't, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 1.7 is for our open forum. Do we have any petitions this evening, Mr CEO?
Yes, we have one petition, Mayor, listed at 1.7.1.
Thank you. And Mr Canizzaro will be introducing this, I think.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillors, before you is a report titled Petition Fort King Island Footpath, which is a report tabling a petition. The key points of the report for Council to consider are Council has received a petition on the 19th of May 2021 from a Ms Jackson on behalf of 38 residents from Painsville. The petition has been circulated to councillors prior to this meeting. The petition states there are approximately 232 allotments on Fort King Island, 8 of which are vacant land. All of these use Fort King Road for access to their property. There is currently no footpath for the entire length of Fort King Road from just each of the bridge or paths on any of the streets and courts, with exception of a few small sections of gravel paths. Fort King Road is a major arterial road to the island and carries a large volume of vehicles every day. There is no safe place to walk, and with an ageing demographic in this area, it is unsafe. If you'd like to see the paths constructed, please put your name on this list to lobby council to put paths on the budget as a matter of urgency. Also, there are no adequate parking spaces outside the aged care facilities. Again, if you would like to see parking provided, please add your name to the lobby council to provide parking spaces and curb and channel to the right-hand side of the road from the roundabout. A report on this matter will be presented to a future council meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Canizzaro. Councillors, there is a recommendation in front of you. Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vandergel, would you like to second the motion? Good. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Reeves?
Briefly, thanks, Mayor and Council. It's always good to hear from our community members and get a sense of the strength and depth of opinion about matters, and this helps us in our decision making. So I thank Ms Jackson and all those who have signed that petition, and we look forward to reviewing it.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Vandergel, would you like to speak to the motion?
I second what Mark has to say, but also living in Painsville, I do understand that quite well. I walk that path regularly and have to walk on the road and constantly look behind myself. It does lead to a beautiful section where people walk their dogs along the water, so I see value in the petition. But I would like to learn more about the parking outside of the nursing home, but happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Vandergel. Is the motion opposed? Would anyone else like to speak either for or against the motion? If not, I put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, the motion is carried. Item 1.7.2 is for questions of council. Mr CEO, we have a question, I believe.
Mayor, we don't actually have a question. It's a public submission, which is the next item, so
Okay.
happy to move to that when you're ready.
Sure, happy to move to that. Yes, indeed.
Mayor, so we have Dawn Gilbert, I believe, is in attendance and wishes to address council in relation to a matter about I guess, correspondence timelines.
Thank you, Ms Gilbert. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great. You're very welcome to address the council, 5 minutes you have to speak, if that's okay with you.
That'd be fantastic, thank you.
Good.
So any time from now?
Yes, you can begin.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors, for allowing me to speak tonight. I would like to discuss the Shire's customer response policy, which is a customer must be responded to initially within 10 days. That's contents 2.3, page 5. My issue was the act of environmental vandalism, so a perpetrator could gain a small water view. It was on the Shire's reserve at Magnetic Retreat, Painsville, where 8 healthy native trees suddenly died in February 2021. My issue was never responded to. Bit of history. 15th of February 21, I first reported the dead trees via an email with a photo. I received a computer-generated email which stated I would receive a reply within 10 days. 16 days after my first email, the Shire had not responded. And knowing the suspected perpetrator's history, I sent another email suggesting there was some underlying hostility regarding this issue of environmental vandalism in the nearby street, and it would be good to put this issue to rest, either one way or the other. I did not receive a computer-generated email to my issue. Almost 3 months after my initial email, I noticed 3 parks and garden workers on the reserve where the suspected trees had been poisoned. And as I had had no contact from the Shire, I decided to approach the 3 Shire Works Gardens people to find out if they thought the native trees had been tampered with. One Shire's Parks and Gardens worker identified that these trees had been poisoned. During my discussion with the 3 Parks and Gardens people, the perpetrator came storming from his house, crossed the street, and stood on the opposite side of the road and began yelling verbal threats at me. I simply turned my back and did not engage. After the perpetrator's threats, I went to the police that day. Today, it is really uncomfortable for me to go outside my home when he is in his garden or in the surrounding vicinity of my home. Please note, I am not the only person to be abused about this environmental vandalism. The ratepayers whose backyard abuts the reserve also had that perpetrator threaten physical harm, and police had to be called to the scene. So, 90 days after my first email, and still no reply, instead, I received a computer-generated survey regarding the Shire's response to my issue. 2 days later, the Shire phoned regarding my response to the survey. I described the now confirmed act of environmental vandalism. I asked that my concerns be also brought to the notice of the Mayor and the councillors, but that's not within the boundaries of what these people can do. Then on the 31st of May, I received a phone call from the Parks and Gardens explaining the act of environmental vandalism would go to Community Law Department. I think that's what it's called. On the 3rd of June, Community Law rang me and asked me, did I have evidence of why the trees had been poisoned, as the Parks and Gardens didn't do a thorough investigation, i.e. taking soil samples, look for drill holes on the poisoned trees. Tonight, I've just highlighted some weaknesses in the Shire's processes regarding environmental vandalism. So, Mayor and councillors, the aim of my presentation tonight is to encourage the Shire to take positive steps to provide their staff with appropriate tools so they can call out environmental vandalism, so they can take appropriate and effective action. Thank you for listening.
Ms Gilbert, thank you. Thank you for speaking to Council. You've obviously raised a lot of issues and we'll need to get back to you about those, but can I offer my apologies for the failures in our customer service as you described them, and I can just say that we will look into them and we will get back to you. And thanks again for speaking to Council about those things. I'm sorry for your experience.
I don't mind going through that experience. What I would like to see that it doesn't happen to anyone again.
Thank you.
And that, as I suggested, there are some really good ways of dealing with this, and I'd like to see that happen. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Item, if we can just move forward here. Now, notices of motion is item number 2 on the agenda.
Before we do, Mayor, we actually
Sorry.
have a number of public submissions in relation to other matters, and we have, I believe, we have those people on the line. So some councillors may be used to a scenario where the submissions were made before the item. We haven't actually had a lot of submissions over COVID, but the rules around, the governance rules that we have, our meeting procedures, actually put it all together now in this public forum section at the front, which we're currently in the process of reviewing. So as it stands at the moment, we have 5 other submitters that would like to speak at this point in time, Mayor, and most of those are in regards to item 5.2.1 about 10 Marlow Road. So perhaps we could have the first person or the next person, which is Gilbert Chandler, I believe.
Oh, here I am.
Good evening. Good evening, Gil.
Good
I should say Mr Chandler. Welcome to the council meeting.
Thank you very much.
I gather you can see us and we can see and hear you quite well. So,
Okay,
and you would like to speak to us about the 10 Mallow Road proposed development, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So we've got a number of speakers this evening and we've allocated 5 minutes for each one. So would you like to start when you're ready? And we'll let you know when to wind up. Thanks, Mr Gilbert. Mr Chandler, sorry.
No, that's okay. Well, thanks all for listening to my concerns. I've written a few things down. I would like to start by stating that I'm not a troublemaker. I've been a member of our CFA for over 20 years. I've also been a member of our Marlow Rescue, which turned into Coast Guard for over 20 years as well. I started our Marlow versus Mallacoota annual cricket match 25 years ago and still organise it each year. I'll state right now that I'm not against a development on the site. I'm for amending the current design to fit with the recommendations that were the outcomes from a meeting that was held some 13 or 14 years ago. I took the time to attend this meeting, which was, I believe, the Marlow Urban Design Framework. Some called it the 30-year plan. Peter Bomber, who was mayor at the time, controlled the meeting. It is a widely held view of the Marlow residents that the current design does not meet with the outcomes of that meeting. On page 17 of the livable region, it states that the development will enhance local character. I ask you all, how on earth can a colour-blind fence guiding tourists and residents all the way into town enhance the character of Marlow? When I found out about the design, I contacted Darren Chester, who wrote to CEO Anthony Basford in early February, relaying my fears. Darren said he would contact me as soon as Anthony responded to him. I received a letter this month from Darren stating that Anthony hadn't responded and he was again writing to him. The council has now acknowledged it failed to adequately communicate with the community over the design. Why is council accepting a design that is contrary to the Mallow Urban Design Framework? The current design doesn't need to change greatly to ease the fears of the community. We've got one chance to make the development a model for other small coastal developments around Australia. Why not listen to our concerns and embrace the chance to develop this site just a little better than what's before us? I've been a commercial fisherman for many years and travelled to many meetings in Melbourne, Queenscliff and Lakes Entrance. You attend these meetings as a stakeholder in a sustainable industry that you care passionately about. At these meetings, your future is in the hands of a few officials who at times, I feel, fail to grasp the ramifications of their decisions. The future of our town now rests in your hands. I hope you see the wisdom and have the courage to slightly amend the design that's before us and respect the community's wishes.
Thank you very much, Mr Chandler. We appreciate you speaking to council. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor, the next speaker we have is Mr Colin Scott, also speaking about the 10 Mallow Road development.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mr Scott.
Good evening.
Hello and welcome to this evening's council meeting.
Thank you.
We can hear you quite clearly, I think, and obviously you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
We have quite a few people speaking with us this evening, so I'd ask you to speak to council but limit your comments to 5 minutes. And
Correct.
If you're comfortable with that, you can begin when you're ready.
Yes, I am comfortable. Madam Chair, councillors and officers, good evening and thank you for the opportunity to present my concerns. I'm a ratepayer who grew up in Orbost and worked for a number of years in the engineering department of the Shire. After leaving, I've maintained an active interest in East Gippsland through our family farming interests and business interests. On completion of my house renovation, I'll be moving back to Marlow. I'm not aligned to the Ratepayers Association, but have decided to speak up as one of many disillusioned silent majority of interested locals. Contrary to the rumours being circulated by certain individuals, we are not a small group of ill-informed agitators. My grandfather was a councillor for 31 years with a keen interest in supporting the development of Orbost Mallow and Lakes Entrance. I've been the chairman of the Stroke Association of Victoria for over 3 years and have recently achieved a grant from the state government for the establishment of 5 stroke support centres in regional Victoria, one of which I am proud to advise will be in Gippsland. Why am I concerned? Well, I believe that the process of community consultation has not been complied with and the community has still not been informed adequately. I support the sympathetic development of this site and other sites in Marlow. We need to increase the permanent population of Marlow to encourage more commercial and residential services and employment. There is a misconception by a very small interest group who believe that providing this subdivision will keep young people in Orbost Marlow. Any demographer that will advise that it is employment which creates the opportunity to build and buy housing in an area. My concerns are that the subdivision, as it has been presented, is inappropriate for Marlow. There appears to have been a disregard for the intent of the Marlow Urban Development Framework. The proposed subdivision plan, which I have only seen recently, is more suitable for a residential outer suburban low-cost development. The size of the majority of lots are smaller than the average for Marlow, and the width of streets are inadequate. My background in risk management gives me concern in relation to the ability of the emergency service vehicles to access the site in the event of fires within the site, particularly its proximity to the Mallow State Forest Reserve. I was in Marlow over the fire events of 2019. I'm informed by a senior Marlow CFA member that they are concerned with the access to the subdivision should there be a fire during the summer season in that subdivision. The proposed metal fence on Marlow Road boundary only benefits the proposed subdivision to increase the number of lots and does not enhance the appeal of the entrance to Marlow. And we're not at Trafalgar or Berwick or wherever. There is only a small provision of usable open space and a small number of linkages or walking tracks through the site to meet up with the existing infrastructure. The information provided in the council report tonight indicates that there has no attempt been to accommodate the wishes of the residents for a blend of lots or lot sizes, and the proposed plan has not altered. The conditions recommended to be imposed by council are not clear, or I couldn't see them. Offering a solution, proper consultation between developer, residents and council has not been followed despite the references to the contrary by officers, and consequently we have a mix of views by stakeholders, with this council now in the centre of the dispute. I believe that council should offer the developer an opportunity to consult with the stakeholders one more time with a recommendation to negotiate a compromise by a small reduction in the number of lots to facilitate a mix of lot sizes and wider streets. An independent mediator, I believe, needs to be employed to ensure that all parties are prepared to compromise. A no vote will not resolve the situation and potentially cost the developer and council much more, as I believe that the developer could then take the case to VCAT. The chance of success may be much higher due to the unreasonable delays and prior commitments by council, with a further expense to the council in preparation of defence. In this case, I believe that the potential outcome could be that this subdivision, when approved, would be on-sold to a major building company who may not have the commitment to Marlow or the East Gippsland Shire Council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. We really appreciate hearing the views directly from the community, so thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor, our next public submission is from Ms. Shane Boyd, also about the Mallow Road Development Plan.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Will be on-sold to a major building company who may not have the commitment to Marlow or the East Gippsland Shire Council.
Good evening, Shane. Ms. Boyd, sorry.
Yes.
Good evening.
I really appreciate
Hello. We can
Yes.
see you and we can hear you quite clearly, Ms. Boyd. So we are hearing from quite a few people from the community this evening. So I would ask you, when you address council, to confine your comments to 5 minutes, if that's okay. You can start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Can you hear me if I turn the mute off? Yes? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
we can
hello.
see you and we can hear you quite clearly, Ms. Boyd. So we are hearing.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are you ready for me to start?
Yes, we are. Thank you. Just when
Okay,
you're ready.
Sorry for the delay. All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr Basford and councillors, and thank you for this extra opportunity to speak to you. I'm going to address the report before you. The report before you, item 5.2.1, endorsement of the development plan request, 10 Marlow Road, represents a failure. It's a failure of process, it's a failure to engage, and it's a failure to listen. It began with the introduction of Amendment C80 in December 2011. And Marlow at that time was not adequately informed about the introduction of this amendment with provision for 112 lots. I was secretary of the Marlow ratepayers at the time, and there was no correspondence from the Shire regarding this development and its likely impact on Marlow. And council minutes of the 13th of December 2011 record that the exhibition process was overlooked and was therefore not exhibited. And failure has continued throughout, and the Marlow community is let down. It fails the Shire's own public engagement policy, which is designed to gain the best possible outcomes for the community, and it requires that the community be told how public input influences decisions. And this report that's before you acknowledges that there's been enormous public input with letters, submissions, a petition of 920 signatures, which included Marlow small business owners, local builders, the general store, the coffee shop, 2 caravan parks and the motel. The report states that lot sizes and subdivision layout is a key criticism raised in community feedback. And this community feedback is then ignored, and the report endorses version 7 with no changes to address this major criticism. How is this acceptable? The Marlow community had to resort to an FOI request to be given what should be publicly available information regarding council minutes and motions. And council staff have failed to follow up community letters and inquiries. Secondly, my second point touches on the point that Colin made just previously. The report misrepresents the intent of the UDF, which was to protect and manage the township character of coastal settlements. George Orwell in 1984 said, "It's a beautiful thing, the destruction of words." Doublespeak. It's language that deliberately obscures, distorts, or reverses the meaning of words. This report cites enhancement of local character to sanction its endorsement. This is a misrepresentation of the UDF and a distortion of the meaning of those words. How will the valued character elements of Marlow, which are space, views, natural environment, and small building mass in the landscape, per the UDF, how will they be demonstrated in version 7? This plan does not protect or retain the local character. It will obliterate it. It's also doublespeak to assert that a 450 metre metal fence reinforces the entry to Marlow. It's an anathema, totally out of keeping with the neighbourhood character. Thirdly, apart from the misrepresentation of the UDF, the report quotes the council plan, Goal 2, commitment to sustainability and protecting our natural environment. But it fails to show how the development plan meets this council goal. It does not. So in conclusion, the Mallow community does not object to development on this site, but we strenuously object to the dense, inappropriate and unwarranted development plan before you. It will destroy the character of Marlow. We have consistently asked to be involved with the design of a suitable subdivision plan for this site. We continue to say that. It should not be a winner-takes-all contest.
Ms Boyd, if you wouldn't mind please winding up your comments now, please.
Yes, I will. But a collaboration where the community, present and future residents and the developer all benefit. Surely we have the wit and the will to do this. We can't change what's happened, but we can rectify past mistakes and move forward with optimism. So we ask that you listen to us, put failure behind us, and let imagination, good design and collaboration create the future development that Marlow deserves. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you for addressing Council. We appreciate hearing directly from the people of Marlow. Good evening, Ms Boyd.
Good evening. Thank you.
Mayor, we now have Mr Bill Koski, who wishes to speak.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr Koski. Good evening. Mr Koski, can you hear us? Hello, Mr Koski.
Hello?
Oh, hello. Yes, can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. We can,
Hello, can you hear me?
we can see you. If you speak very loudly, we'll be able to hear you, I think.
Yes, I can.
Right. Welcome to the council meeting,
Well,
Mr
hang on.
Koski. Mr Koski?
Yeah, that's better. I can hear you.
Great. Welcome to
You
our
want me-
council meeting.
Yeah.
We're hearing from a few people from the Mallow community this evening. We would love to hear from you. We would like you to confine your comments to 5 minutes, if you could do that, please. And when you're ready, you're welcome to begin.
Yeah. All right. My name's Bill, Madam Mayor and Councillors. My name's Bill Koski. I'm a planning consultant. I've been engaged by the Marlow Ratepayers and Residents Association to make some brief submissions to you. It's my submission that this application should be refused, simply for two basic reasons. The proposed development fails to retain and enhance the residential character of Marlow, and this is a requirement of clause 2112 of the planning scheme, which in effect incorporates the urban design framework. This provides under vision, Marlow will develop as a village with excellent facilities and a lively community hub while retaining its character as a seaside holiday town, including looking out towards the river and ocean. The second point is residential streets will be lined with trees and established gardens that reflect the coastal character of the town, under objectives to enhance the town character and to maintain the existing scale of residential development. And to be fair, it refers to the subject site and saying investigate the potential to allow for future residential use at, and I stress, slightly higher than existing densities. It follows that the most important criteria for the council is to determine whether this development retains and enhances Marlow's town character. I'm of the opinion that the plan proposed an overdevelopment of the site. It contains features that are inconsistent with the town's established character, including its residential streets lined with trees and established gardens. Specifically, the lack of usable open space within the subdivision and the predominance of small lots combine to create an intense suburban subdivision, more characteristics of large towns and cities, and a lot density much higher than elsewhere in Marlow. Houses in Marlow face onto its main streets behind established gardens with low or no front fences. The proposed long high fence along Mallow, the Mallow Road frontage, and the houses behind it with their backs to Mallow Road are two features not seen elsewhere in Marlow. The fence creates an ugly entry point to Marlow and a barrier inhibiting integration with and circulation between the development and the rest of Marlow. My family and I have a house on Mallow Plains, which we have been visiting for extended periods every year for the last 40 years. During that time, Marlow has experienced considerable new development, but despite that, Marlow has managed to retain its essential character and charm. Councillors, it's my submission that if you are not comfortable that the development is suitable and will retain and enhance the character of Marlow as required by the planning scheme, you should reject it and encourage the applicant and the community to work together to achieve that objective. The second point is a technical point, and that is that this development plan does not satisfy the planning scheme's requirements for approval of development plans. Thus, council cannot and should not approve it. To do so would leave council's actions open to legal challenge. And I'd just like to point you to clause 4304 of the scheme, which applies to development plans. It says, a plan must describe the proposed use and development of each part of the land. This requirement is not satisfied as the use of the subdivision lots, such as for residential use, or their proposed development, such as for detached dwellings, is not specified, nor is the use and development of Lot A. And the second part of that is that clause 4 of the schedule says there must be only one development plan for the whole of the land to which the schedule applies. It must not exclude any parts of the property or separate parcels of land. The development plan itself expressly excludes Lot A, you can see that, and foreshadows a second development plan for it. That's at page 5 of the development plan. Well, and it doesn't, the scheme doesn't allow a second plan. The land occupied by the caravan park is excluded from the plan. That's on page 11. Thank you for letting me make this submission to you.
Mr Koski, thank you so much for speaking to council. We really appreciate that. Thank you and good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Now, Mayor, we have one more, Richard Hoxley, also wishing to speak on 10 Mallow Road. However, we're just having some technical issues with Richard dropping out. So if he is watching on YouTube, please dial back in. So we may just need to give him a very short window, but that would be our last speaker for the public submissions section.
Okay. Perhaps we can hear when he comes back online, can we? And
we can do
even
that.
make room for him on the agenda then.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Now we will move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is notices of motion, and I don't believe we have any. We don't have any deferred business. So item 4 on the agenda is for councillor and delegate reports. Councillors, do I have some reports this evening? Will we start with you, Councillor Reeves? Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. One day we should go the other way.
Yeah, we should. We should.
But I'm happy to start. And,
we will.
Thanks, councillors, and those people who are watching. Can I thank the 22-odd people who are watching, and also those people who have spoken tonight. It's really important that we hear you here in the chamber. 3 quick things, councillors. I attended the second of the Future of Orbost consultation last Wednesday, and I'd like to note and thank the excellent work being done by Tim Cotter and the chamber. This is a really amazing piece of work, and after that initial community consultation, that particular group has distilled to 9 recommendations that really hit the mark, and now the process is out to consultation to get feedback on those 9 recommendations. And I urge everybody to look up that Future of Orbost page and to make some contribution to Tim and the members who have put that together. There were 60-odd people in attendance, 30-odd in person, another 30 or so online. So it was quite a significant gathering, and I really congratulate the community of Orbost and surrounds for that work. I'd like to also mention, councillors, that last Friday, I attended online the Senate Standing Committee on Rural and Regional Affairs and Transport. We as a council made a submission into the inquiry on the Australian government's response to drought. And Mayor and councillors, I was very proud to be able to present that submission and engage with the Standing Committee and senators there for about 45 minutes or nearly an hour. And it was a very, very engaging conversation. I was very pleased with their interest and knowledge in our experience. I'd like to thank the officers for summarising our view, and here's the submission that we put to the Senate Standing Committee. And ironically, of course, it was an inquiry into the Australian government's response to drought, and on that particular day we had biblical rainfall and rivers in spate and flood conditions. Nevertheless, the lingering issues and effects of the drought on us still continue. And Councillor White, you were Mayor at the time during those incredibly difficult drought times, and I just want to acknowledge the work that you did in also contributing to the Drought Reference Group, which contributed to this particular document. So thank you for that, and it made my work easy on that particular day. And finally, councillors, I'd just like to mention that a number of us, Senator Gratian, but Councillor Gratian, the Mayor, myself and some officers met with Mudgee Aboriginal Council board members the other day, and I think that was a long overdue and very important meeting for us as a council. Thanks, Mayor. My report I'll submit and it can be on the record.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. I'm just going to pause, councillors. Yes, Mr Hoxley is here to address us, but I would like to ask councillors for a notice to suspend standing orders while we hear from Mr Hoxley, please. Thank you, Councillor Reeves.
We
have a
suspend
seconder?
standing orders? Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Greason. Is the motion opposed? No. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. So we have Mr Hoxley online.
He was literally just there, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, councillors, and everybody, I do apologise. Mr Hoxley is no longer online, so could I have a motion, please, that we resume?
I'm happy to move that we resume the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Is the motion seconded? Thank you, Councillor Allen. Is the motion opposed? I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Councillor Crook, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, I'll keep it quick this evening, or quicker than normal. Look, I had the pleasure of attending the opening of the East Gippsland Winter Festival last Friday evening, opened by the Mayor here in Bainsdale. The Winter Festival's tagline of embracing the chill of the season and an abundant celebration of art, local produce and live music was really made true last Friday evening. It was not only a fantastic opening, but was followed by the Laneway Festival in behind the old Safeway building there, and I don't think that laneway has ever seen quite so much action. There was lights, there was cameras, there was kids, there was laughter. The atmosphere was nothing short of electric. It was fantastic. And look, I believe it's really important for our community to have these events, not just because they provide an economic accelerator for what is usually the quietest time of year for tourists and our visitor economy, but also in the context of bushfire recovery, COVID recovery and drought recovery. Councillors, our communities have been through a lot, and I think this is one of the first real opportunities that we've had to get out there and have fun for quite a lot of time. Adam Bolam did an exceptional job coordinating and supporting all the communities across East Gippsland to create this series of over 80 events under the Winter Festival banner, from Bainsdale to Mallacoota to Omeo, and most towns in between. There's also been an enormous amount of work going on behind the scenes to bring this all together, and I would specifically like to mention our events team here at the Council, Kelly Lawler, Jeanette Signor, Sam McPherson, and of course Sharon Ragoose, and others. I offer my sincere thanks and congratulations for a job very well done that will hopefully turn into an annual event, something that this council has already committed to funding for the next couple of years. Are we good with the disturbance outside there? That's all okay?
Yes, no problem.
Okay,
No problem.
I'll leave it there then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Thank you. Councillor Greeson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to agree completely with what Councillor Crook has just said about the opening of the Winter Festival. It was pretty exciting and it was just lovely to be there. And I also, as Councillor Reeves said about attendance at the Mudgee Aboriginal Council East Gippsland, that was a really good meeting. I think we have established a way forward for ongoing communication between the two organisations. It's very important, and Mudgee was pleased to talk to us about their multiple roles and their representation of the local Aboriginal community for 30 years. So I thought that was very valuable, and their feedback from it was positive too. Today I had a meeting with LARJAC, which is the local Aboriginal Justice Advisory Committee, and again we talked about a number of things, but one of the outstanding things was the family violence program called the Orange Door, which is going to be established here in Bainsdale and Sale. And I think that sounds like a very important project that we should know about and know a lot more about. They provide assessment and support services, and their role is to protect families. So that was valuable. There was quite a lot of talk about the relationship between the Aboriginal community and the East Gippsland Shire Council as well at that meeting. So some good feedback and some enthusiasm for renewing relationships. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greeson. Councillor Allen, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mindy. I've only had a couple of things to report this time around, but a couple of weeks ago in the company of Mayor Mindy and Wayne Richards, we attended a meeting of the Lakes Entrance Youth and Recreation Hall Committee of Management, who explained the inadequacies of the facilities that they currently have and the lack of facilities for indoor recreation across the community. The good part about that meeting was that we were able to hear from Wayne that there is a survey happening shortly to ascertain what the indoor sporting needs are for the community, and we hope that out of that we will be able to progress into the future and put facilities in that are first class that meet the needs of the community. And last Wednesday, at the invitation of the Benambra-Corryong Road Committee, Councillor Buckley and I attended what was a meeting of some very enthusiastic people at Benambra that has grown out of our council group meeting that we had at the Benambra football ground earlier in the year. And they're very keen to get out and lobby and get some action on improvements to the Benambra-Corryong Road with a view to eventually having the last 60 k's of it sealed. And it was great to see that the community up there have taken the bit between their teeth and getting out and making themselves heard. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Van Diggle.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it a bit short and sweet. Unfortunately, I was away in the last at the last meeting, so I've sent the other items to be put into the meeting minutes. So I'll just mention the visit, which I'm sure, Madam Mayor, you will do for the Lucknow Club Room's grand opening. So I attended that on Saturday, and for me, I guess the highlight for that was actually just seeing the life members who were explaining what it used to look like and the scoreboards and how they raised money years ago, and then seeing, you know, that obviously the Lucknow Football Netball Club and that whole area has grown a lot in the last few years, and they just seemed really, really appreciative of those club rooms. So I was really happy to be able to attend that. I would say just the comments of hearing from those lifelong members who are acknowledging the changes in the last few years and how much that facility has improved. Yeah, I wanted to mention that, and then I guess the rest of the things I might not mention, given that it was several weeks ago, but they are in the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Van Diggle. Councillor White, please. Do you have a councillor report?
I could, but it would be in the middle of this conference that I'd be discussing, which is not concluded at this stage. So I'm wondering if I could be excused from giving the report, because we still do have one day to go, and that would save giving two-part reports, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck up there. We look forward to hearing all about it when you get back. Thank you, Councillor White.
It's been a bloodbath.
A bloodbath. Oh, great. Okay. Councillor Buckley, do you have a councillor report, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I sit as the council representative on the Rural Councils Victoria, and we had a summit at Nagambie, which I attended with Anthony Basford, our CEO, and Councillor John White. It was cut a little short because COVID restrictions were brought back in, but we made the most of it, and I really found the experience to be important and of value, gaining lots of knowledge and networking and exploring new opportunities for our region. One that stood out to me was the long-awaited bottle refund network, which I think everyone's going to be able to love, getting a few cents back for their bottles. That is to be to come, so we're told. It was also interesting. One of the speakers was Bernard Saltz, and he was very informative, very strategic, and one of his noteworthy comments was how he felt that climate change, which used to be the major issue, has now been surpassed by COVID, and that many challenges and changes that have been brought to our economy and also to our freedoms. Some of the major issues that we face are trade people skill shortages, which is not new, yet to maximise regional migration, we must address the issue of livability to attract professionals and skilled workers. Housing clearly is a major challenge for all rural councils, and some of those challenges are the social housing, which affects the lower socioeconomic, affordable housing, which is needed by the workers, quality housing that is sought by professionals, and that also presents material shortages, timber. And the main issues that need to be addressed are planning department delivery and investment, attraction. I'll just finish up by saying that one thing that I thought would be very beneficial that was raised at the summit was that we look at having an investment attraction officer to facilitate a strategy for our region. So that's the end of my report. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Stowe, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, the highlight of my month has been the opening of the new Woolworth supermarket in Bainsdale. We've taken a 40-year-old supermarket, which, let's face it, was a little on the tired side, and turned it into a modern 2021 supermarket with an additional 48 new jobs. Most of those jobs are going to go in the new 3 bays of click and collect. The supermarket looked fantastic. I was lucky enough to be invited to say a few words and cut the ribbon, And Sue Hollingsworth, the oldest employee, she's not the oldest, but the longest serving employee of 35 years, was there to cut the cake. So it's a vote of confidence in our Shire and our town that this new supermarket's been open, and it's already relieved the issue of parking quite significantly down the street. The other thing was, I'm in Tasmania, as most of you know now, and I called into Derby and had a look at the Blue Derby mountain bike track the other day. I can see why the previous council got so excited, and I can see why we approved the money to build one at Omeo. Derby's very similar to Omeo in a lot of respects, and they just love it. It's gone from a town of one business, which was subsidised by the council to keep it open. Now there's probably a dozen businesses there. They've got people travelling. I spoke to some of the people using the track who travelled down from Queensland to use it. They said all states of Australia are coming to Blue Derby to use the track, and we could expect the same at Omeo. They're actually well aware of Omeo, the fact that it's going to be built. So that's all good news too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Just briefly for my report, I have a written report which I've submitted to go out with the minutes also. I would just like to mention a few things. On the 2nd of June, I attended virtually the Mayoral Advisory Committee meeting. So this is the second meeting of 4 with a group of mayors who meet with the Minister for Local Government. The theme of the meeting was supporting vulnerable communities, and I was invited to make a 20-minute presentation on East Gippsland's recovery. Presentations from other mayors were on emergency management for rural and regional areas, collaborating across municipal lines, and affordable housing strategies. So all very good topics. I was able to explain where we are in recovery. This is all with the support of our council officers, of course, who provided some really good information and slides. How our communities are at different stages on recovery, and it was also a timely opportunity to thank the Minister and the state government for all the support and funding that we've had from all levels of government, really, and the work of government agencies. I spoke about the need for a 5-year recovery plan, that's really what the latest evidence is showing that it takes, and that that community needs need to be more explicitly considered in recovery programs. Most importantly, support and funding need to be available when the community is ready for it and not on a predetermined recovery timeline. I also shared the negative impacts of competitive funding approaches where impacted communities are competing with one another. It's also important that support is easy to negotiate and not all online. So all these things I think we've learned through the long and difficult, bumpy recovery with our communities. I believe the presentation was well received and regarded as an important conversation amongst some of our peers. Important to note that since our last meeting, COVID lockdowns have meant that the cancellation and postponement of many community events, particularly during the week of the 28th of May to the 4th of June, and this included the Reconciliation Week Assembly at Bainsdale West Primary School, which Councillor Stowe actually attended. It was rescheduled. That event is always wonderful. All events at the Forge Theatre and the opening celebration of the Clifton Creek Tennis Club were also affected or also cancelled. These cancellations, of course, they're necessary, and the first priority must be to protect people from COVID, but it does have an impact, I think, on our communities when those gatherings are so important for people to get together. But I think, I wanted to mention the Winter Festival as well, because this ties in, I think. I know Councillor Crook and Councillor Greason have mentioned it already, but to me, this is a fantastic opportunity for many of our communities right across Gippsland to take the opportunity and gather together around events that are actually joyful and lovely and engaging. So there are something like 80 events across the period of the Winter Festival in all of our communities, from Mallacoota all the way up to Benambra, I believe, Councillor Buckley. So I just recommend that people join in as much as they can and enjoy those events. And also congratulations to our staff and to the previous council for for committing to fund that event over 3 years. So yeah, I might leave my report there. We have Mr Hoxley with us, who would like to speak about the 10 Mallow Road development, and he's actually with us in person now, so I will invite him to come in. We need a motion to suspend standing orders again, please, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Put forward that motion. Seconded, Councillor Allen. Is the motion opposed? No. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Mr Hoxley, welcome, and thank you for walking round and being here in person. We've heard from a number of people this evening, Mr Hoxley, so if it's possible, we'd like you to keep your comments to about 5 minutes or less, even. 5 minutes, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors. We appreciate the opportunity to make this submission before you this evening in regard to the matter before you for the approval of the development plan for 10 Mallow Road in Marlow. This has been quite a lengthy process, one way and another, in dealing with various challenges associated with a development of this scale and within the township of Mallow. Our client has been quite patient, but equally engaging through the course of the process. It's disappointing in many respects to hear comments tonight about the proposal in its alleged failings to comply with the provisions of the design and development overlay. This is simply untrue and something I'd like to address initially. The previous speaker, Mr Bill Koski, made mention or in reference to clause 43034 of the planning scheme, which is a state level clause, and the requirements required for a development plan. Though that particular clause is fairly high level, it doesn't assume what the schedule says when that clause is drafted. So in response to Mr Koski, his concerns, the development plan quite clearly applies to all of the land as it is currently known as a single parcel of land at 10 Mallow Road, Marlow. An area described as Lot A in the southwest corner of the property is included within the plan. The fact that we haven't provided a specific proposal for that site is very deliberate because it's a site that's large enough to whereby various alternative, either residential, commercial and even appropriate, residential development or even non-residential development as appropriate within the planning scheme for the general residential zone could be accommodated or has the potential to be accommodated and subject to further investigation by a proponent and consideration by council with a more specific plan for that site. But we have not excluded that area from our plan. It's quite clear, it's included and what's intended. So the development plan does apply to all of the land. Equally, an area of land at the south-eastern boundary that adjoined the caravan park. The concern is that hasn't been referenced in the plan. Well, it doesn't need to be. There's an exclusion in the schedule. And what we've actually done through the course of this proposal is realign the title boundary to coincide with land that was occupied by the adjoining caravan park. It wasn't part of their land, it was part of our client's land. So I think it's important that these matters be clarified with your consideration of the matter this evening. A lot's been said about the layout of the proposal and concerns raised in terms of neighbourhood character. No one to date in the submissions that we've heard and that we've become aware of has gone into any detail of defining what the neighbourhood character is for Marlow, and most particularly in this location, in order to address how we should respond. The application provides a detailed site analysis and design response in demonstrating how we've had regard to features and constraints of the site and the surrounding area. Lot sizes vary considerably and satisfy planning considerations of lot diversity in such areas. Marlow, as it currently stands, has a diversity of lot sizes throughout the town. In fact, Stewart Street nearby, we've been criticised for lots at or below 730 square metres. Well, every original lot in Stewart Street, which is walking distance from the site, 730 square metres. The analysis by Bill Koski suggests that 66% of the site, of the lots proposed, are at 732 square metres or less. Well, funnily enough, that means that 44% are higher or larger than 732 square metres, several in excess of 1,000 square metres, with an average lot size slightly in excess of 800 square metres, a typical residential size block. And you get that same diversity throughout Marlow. Ward Street, lots in the range of 340 square metres to 1,100 square metres, and including Perry Street, and they are both immediately to the south of this site. Lot frontages, lot depths, lot sizes, all contribute to what might be deemed neighbourhood character. None of these concerns have been raised to identify the failings, allegedly, with this proposal in not meeting neighbourhood character. Now, clearly, one of the concerns is the fence along Mallow Road.
Mr Hoxley, thank you.
This is an element that we have been negotiating, if you like, with the council officers throughout the course of the proposal. There is already extensive vegetation along that roadside. It will be enhanced with the creation of an additional reserve, if you like, a plantation reserve. It's there to provide and will include additional screening to mask that fence. But that fence is there for several reasons, one of which is to avoid people accessing Marlow Road directly from those lots, which is not supported by either council or, more particularly, Vic Roads. It won't be an eyesore because it'll be screened with vegetation. Now, open space, the road network complies with council's IDM in terms of road widths. They are accessible by emergency vehicles. 18 metres wide is a generous width in a residential neighbourhood. The reserve at more than a hectare, well, the other point made, we aren't providing much in the open space. It's there for passive open space use as well as bushfire defence, as reviewed both by the CFA and independently reviewed by another bushfire consultant.
Mr Hoxley, I'm sorry to finish you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, but I call on you to support this proposal as it stands and the extensive work undertaken between the proponents, council officers and the community that did engage early on through the consultation process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for addressing council. Really appreciate the effort it's taken. Councillors, could I now have a resolution that we resume standing orders, please? Councillor Greeson, thank you. Oh, let's go to on the screen here. Councillor Buckley would like to second the motion. Is the motion opposed? No. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.1, we're up to the officer reports, item 5 on the agenda. Item 5.1.1 is Dogs in Public Places Trial Evaluation, and we have General Manager Ms Pitkin to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your endorsement to implement the Dogs in Public Places rules on a permanent basis and to undertake a public education campaign to continually inform the community of the changes and their responsibilities. The salient points of the report for Council to consider are that following community feedback about the lack of options for exercising dogs off-leash, the Dogs in Public Places trial commenced in December 2019, following the Public Gazette of Order No. 2 under Section 26 of the Domestic Animals Act. The trial period was extended for a further 12 months due to the Black Summer bushfires and COVID-19 restrictions not allowing the trial an appropriate amount of time. Officers have undertaken an evaluation of the trial by both a public survey and an analysis of customer requests relating to dog attacks and dogs at large or wandering. The public survey had 248 responses, of which 65% of respondents agreed that the rules should continue. The analysis of customer requests showed that there wasn't a significant increase in dog-related requests as a result of the trial. Based on this, it is the officer's recommendation that order number 2, being dogs in public places rules, remain in place on a permanent basis until revoked by future council resolution. Also present this evening is Sam McPherson, Manager Regulatory and Compliance Services, who is happy to take any questions. The report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Pitkin. Councillors, are there any questions of councillors about this report? No, I see no questions. Then there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Stowe. You'd like to move the motion? Councillor Allen to second the motion. Councillor Stowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. Look, it's been trialled, it works. I recommend that we adopt it.
Thank you. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I think it provides a good balance that allows areas for dogs to be off-leashed, and we should support it.
Is the motion opposed? Does anyone else wish to speak either for or against the motion? Councillor Crook?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to speak for the motion. I think it's really important to recognise the social wellbeing aspects of people having pets, particularly dogs. A lot of our elderly residents and lonely people are kept company by their pets, especially their dogs. So I think this is an important move by our council that recognises those important roles. I would like also to highlight that there is a balance to be struck here, and that some people are intimidated by dogs, and so it's important that we have a regulatory framework that manages those elements also, and also to highlight the interactions between dogs and wildlife, and that I don't think we've quite got that balance as good as it could be yet, so there's still room for improvement, but I certainly am happy to endorse the motion as it stands.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Does anybody else wish to speak either for or against the motion? Sonia? Councillor Buckley, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am in favour of the motion. I think that another element that we need to recognise is that it's a really healthy thing for dogs to do. They love to run, they love to play, and it's good for their well-being because many of them are cooped up in environments whilst their owners are away from work. So I commend the officers on doing the work to ensure that we're looking after not only the owners but also the animals themselves. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Does anyone else wish to speak? Thank you, Councillor Reeves.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillors, I think it's important to note that that point 3 in the recommendation about an education campaign, because the survey found that although 56% of people found the rules clear to understand, that means that there's a proportion of people who need some help understanding them. So that's important that we have that educational program built into this recommendation.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? If not, I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.2.1 on our agenda is the endorsement of development plan request at 10 Marlow Road, Marlow. Ms Pitkin, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your endorsement to approve the development plan for 10 Marlow Road. The salient points of the report for Council to consider include: the request seeks approval for a development plan for land located at 10 Marlow Road in accordance with the development plan overlay requirements of the East Gippsland planning scheme. This approval process has been in progress since November 2015. In 2012, the subject land was rezoned for residential purposes and is now considered to be zoned General Residential 1. The key planning scheme requirements relate to site characteristics relating to inundation and bushfire, existing vegetation, provision of open space, landscaping, vehicle and pedestrian connectivity. The municipal strategic statement makes reference to the vision statement for the township of Marlow. to the implementation of the Marlow Urban Design Framework. The subject land is identified for residential purposes in both of these documents. The development plan is a strategic planning tool used to guide the future use and development of the land. It has two purposes: to identify the land and to exempt planning permits from notice and review. Part of the recommendation to approve the development plan has been the execution of 2 legal agreements which have been agreed to by the proponent. This will ensure a number of requirements, including the imposition of a maintenance levy in relation to the proposed reserve for bushfire purposes. Another key aspect is the agreement for payment of community infrastructure contribution. The key planning considerations relating to stormwater drainage, bushfire protection, future development of Lot A, social impact assessment, neighbourhood character, subdivision layout have been appropriately addressed and included in the documentation proposed to be endorsed and implemented. The Council report also addresses the key elements raised in the tabled petition on the 23rd of February 2021. Community consultation has been conducted in December 2016 and January 2017. Based on the above planning merits, the recommendation is for the approval of the endorsement of the development plan. Also present this evening is Nicole Reynolds, Acting Manager Planning. The report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Pitkin. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Crook?
Thank you. So under the current plan as it stands, there is no third-party mechanism for appeal. That's my understanding. So if, irrespective of our subsequent decision this evening, there will be no other option bar that of some kind of civil action to modify the development in the future. Is that correct?
The answer to that, Councillor Crook, is that there is no VCAT appeal rights. There are actually legal appeal rights. Planning matters are heard in the Supreme Court.
Right, so they'd have to take it to the Supreme Court to have any decisions modified.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Are there any further questions, councillors? If not, there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? If I don't have a mover, then that recommendation will lapse. Councillors, are there other motions? Councillor Buckley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to have a procedural motion to defer the matter because councillors believe the community consultation process needs further exploration, that the development meets social licence of the Mallow community and the expectations are met. We wish to support the developer with recognition to all the work that the developer has done.
Councillor Buckley, I just might stop you there. Thank you. You've given a reason why you want to raise an alternative motion. I'm just going to ask if there is a seconder for that. And Councillor Reeves is indicating that he would like to second that motion. We're just going to get that motion up on the screen. No, usually goes so smoothly. Councillor Buckley, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can read out the alternative motion. I have it before me.
Well, we have it on the screen now, so I think there's probably no need to read it. We just wait for one moment more.
The screen seems to be too large that you can't see all of the alternative motion.
Do you think that's best?
I think it's
There
best to
you
read
go.
it out,
Oh,
yes.
look. Okay.
There's still a third and fourth.
Okay, so maybe I will ask you to read it, please, Councillor Buckley.
Okay. The alternative motion is as follows. 1, that the debate on the matter be deferred until the future council meeting to allow further negotiation and for the proponent to make modifications to the development plan as proposed to 10 Marlow Road, Mallow, prior to the consideration of the matter. 2, that prior to the presentation of this matter for the resolution, that the development plan be modified as follows, generally in accordance with the current version of the plan, but modified to show A, modification of the subdivision layout to incorporate a service road arrangement to the Marlow Road, which results in no direct access for residential allotments from Marlow Road. B, retention of the proposed lineal public open space to augment the pathway and landscape arrangement to the frontage of Marlow Road. C, deletion of the proposed 1.8 metre high fence to Marlow Road. D, preparation of landscaping plan which documents the proposed landscaping treatment to Marlow Road. E, the detailed drainage construction plans and specification plans are prepared to document all aspects of the stormwater drainage system, including stormwater connections and any water-sensitive urban design measures as required. F, creation of proposed Lot A as a public open space. G, some modifications to parts of the development to create some lots of larger size to retain the seaside village character. 3, that the modified development plan be subject to further community consultation with the involvement of the proponent, meeting with the community with the support of an external mediator prior to presentation of the matter to the council for decision within a period of 90 days. And 4, that the proponent be required to provide a response within 14 days regarding their willingness to participate in the processes detailed above. In the absence of a positive response, this matter will be presented to council at the next council meeting for decision.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. So that's the motion, and it's the mover of that, and Councillor Reeves is the seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Buckley?
Yes, Madam Mayor. It's with absolute and good intention that we support the proponent in this matter. I think it's very clear that all of the community in Marlow want this development to proceed. It's a necessity for housing shortages, and we want to support the community in doing so. I hope the council will come forward and do their very best to facilitate that process so that we can find a positive resolution for everybody involved. I know it's very difficult, and I certainly want the investors to know that we want a good resolution to this long-standing matter. It's a shame that it got to this point, and it's with hope that a mediator will come in and be able to bring back to council a positive step forward so that we can resolve the matter and that the thing goes ahead, the development plan goes ahead. That's all, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Reeves, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Councillor Buckley, for bringing that alternative motion there. Look, councillors, I think that we should be really grateful to the many opinions that have been conveyed about this matter from all those community members over a period of time, many years as it turns out. So we're grateful for that, and thank you. Councillors, a Marlow comes about once in a lifetime, and the opportunity to live in and develop a community that is coastal, estuarine and agricultural is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to make this legacy for the next 2, 3, 4 generations. As you mentioned, Councillor Crook, once the genie's out of the bottle, we can't put the plug back in. It's a plan not just for the next 5 years, it's a really big decision for the future. And this development, as we've seen, I think, councillors, requires a social licence. And I think that what's proposed here is a way of regaining that social licence. And the worst thing we can do is not make a decision. No decision means no one's happy. But I think we need to defer this and give it one last chance. Councillors, we've agonised over this matter for many years, as many of you have many of you in the local community. Since the in-principle decision in September 2016, which was unanimous, we've sought and pleaded to engage in dialogue and constructive conversation with, in particular, the proponent. And indeed, we all thought that was one of the main conditions in the original in-principle agreement, consultation. But, councillors, what we found is that silence is a dark place of fear and anxiety. And until we had that final development plan and legal agreements, we were all in that dark place. We didn't know what was going on. Many of us had hoped for a much improved response to that particular local input around amenity and neighbourhood character, and some of those main sticking points still seem to be unresolved. The streetscape of Marlow Road, access and entry points, that contentious fence, density, drainage, water management and others. And councillors, I think we all urge the proponent to hear what is being proposed here tonight and engage in the consultation around the matters that are mentioned. And we are of the opinion that this can be resolved with these considerations. Thanks, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Is the motion opposed? Councillor White. Sorry, you need to unmute, please. Thank you.
A third hand came into play to help me. Thank you. Listening to Mr Hoxley's address before, we have 2.f, creation of a proposed Lot A as public open space. Now, that's actually, he's spoken of that as being not in the plan at the moment as allotments, but proposed future allotments. I look at that as being a very a harsh treatment, because at around about the hectare or so, that could be more than 12 allotments that disappear from his proposed plan, and I think that's a very harsh, very expensive and very harsh treatment of the proponent. That because they'd already had an area set aside for public open space. So that's my reason for speaking against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Does anybody wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Crook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, this has probably been one of the, in my short council career thus far, probably the most contentious and hotly debated issue that's come before us. I've received more letters on both sides of the debate on this particular issue almost than any other, in fact. I think what we're proposing here is a negotiated outcome. It's clear that the proponent wishes to go with the existing plans, and it's clear that a considerable portion of the community seek to modify that in some way or another. The one thing that everybody, however, can agree on is that that land does need to be developed as a residential zone for Marlow. And I think that is what will result, hopefully from this process, and if not, then certainly into the future. This gives us an opportunity to negotiate an outcome that hopefully keeps most of the people happy most of the time. And as a council, that is essentially what we are charged with doing. So I am happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Does anyone else wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Allen? No. You wish to speak for the motion then? Thank you, Councillor Allen. Yeah, John's spoken already. Did you need a point of clarification or something, John?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it was clarification about in meeting procedure whether the item that I've raised could be put as an amendment to this proposed alternative motion.
Okay,
So
thank
could
you.
we get
Would you like to state,
clarification?
would you like to state what your amendment is, John?
It's
Councillor.
to remove that, because I think that's quite a substantial financial loss to the proponent. Everyone's speaking about wanting to see the proposal go forward, but if we put the proponent under too much financial pressure, there won't be a subdivision.
John, before you speak to it, so you've asked that that be removed from the motion. So that's what you're proposing. I wonder if there is a seconder to that amendment, please. Councillor Stowe? Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor White, would you like to I'm just going to pause for a minute. I might be getting some good advice, I think, about meeting procedure here.
If the original mover and seconder of the alternative motion agree, you know what I'm saying.
Thank you. Yes, that was good advice indeed. So the amendment has been put and been seconded. Now I'm just going to go back to the original mover of the motion, Councillor Buckley and Councillor Reeves, to see if that's an acceptable to you. Councillor Buckley, do you accept that as an amendment?
Is it possible to have some overlay on the, instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Is it possible to leave that open to negotiation in regards to, because some of the concerns that I've heard from the community are around,
I'm just going to
around the trees in that space, so it's a little bit more complicated.
Okay, rather than you speaking to your reasons, okay,
Right.
I just need to know, I can deal with other amendments, but we're just going to deal with this one in the first instance. So the amendment is to remove F, the item F, in the motion. Do you agree to that or not? If you don't agree to it, there might be an opportunity to put another amendment later on, Councillor Buckley, and debate it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I don't agree to the amendment.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I don't agree to the amendment either.
Okay.
So now we need to put the amendment to the vote, a mover and a seconder, and go through that process.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder for the amendment. So we can now debate that. The mover was Councillor White and the seconder was Councillor
Point
Stowe.
of order.
Yes, Councillor Reeves.
Thanks, Mayor. Can I just ask, what was the point of asking the original mover and seconder if it can be accepted, if now it has been accepted and been taken to the vote?
My understanding is, perhaps we'll ask Mr Costa to answer that. Thank you. Wouldn't be debated.
So if the original mover and seconder don't agree to the amendment to their alternative motion, it still needs to be put to council as a whole to see whether or not the council agree to that amendment so that it's a majority consensus.
Thanks for that clarification.
So we're now going to consider the amendment, to debate the amendment. So we have a mover, Councillor White, and we have a seconder, Councillor Stowe. Is that amendment, no, is that amendment opposed amongst the councillor group? Just the amendment. We're just looking at the amendment. Is it opposed? They're looking at me quizzically.
So Councillor White can speak to his amendment, just like a normal motion?
Sorry, I'm really off the track. That sounds better. Councillor White, I do apologise. Would you like to speak to your amendment?
Thank you, Mayor. That's I think I did speak my reasons why when I raised the issue. I feel uncomfortable with putting that much pressure on the developer when we see that officers' recommendations are that they would support the proposal, support the development. Many members of the community have wish for the proposal to go ahead, and also those who have actually opposed it have only opposed it on certain grounds, which I think are negotiable. So I feel that it is putting a tremendous strain on a developer to take away, as I would just estimate, somewhere in excess of $1 million worth of his property, his development. I think that's a pretty harsh provision to put on him. I really think it's unfair. That's why I've just said, could please Section F be removed. The other things are probably quite negotiable and not at a cost or at an extreme cost, but this particular part of it is, taking a lot of money out of that development, which may make it unviable.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Stowe, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I think the removal of this, we're still left with, will be satisfying most of the objectives. A lot of people think that land developers make a huge amount of profit. That's often not the case. Many of them go broke. It can be a very fine line. And if we ask him to forego this sort of money, he could well send this developer broke, and the project may never go ahead. There's also quite a significant amount of public land already down there. There's public land within the development, and I think we're going over the top by asking for this.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Is the amendment opposed? Thank you. Councillor Rees, would you like to speak to that, against the amendment?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor White and Councillor Stowe, for your contribution, and I appreciate the perspective. At the moment, the developer has a development plan which proposes 104 blocks without what is known as Block A. So that's, and as Mr Hoxley said, that is yet to be decided. So the actual future and potential of this is based on not developing Block A. Those of us who know that site well and intimately will know how important that linkage through Block A will be to the Triangle Park and for the pedestrian movements into Marlow in future. So to retain that for public open space, I think, is a really important connection through to Argyle Street, to the other amenities in Marlow, which are so important for this block, to make this block a walking, cycling, pedestrian-friendly area. I think that particular block, part of the corner of that development, which is right underneath the Telstra Tower, so it's not a particularly good place for development, it's a good place for open space.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Does anybody else wish to speak for the amendment? No. Anyone else wish to speak against the amendment? Councillor Buckley.
Look, I just want to say that I really appreciate John and Trevor's position on this. I think they really have raised a valid issue, and it pains me to have to vote against the motion, the amendment, correction. But I do agree that public spaces are so important, and for the reasons that Mark has raised, I think that this is something that I can support in this case, and also for the environment. Marlow is known for an incredible amount of bird life, and we want to encourage those birds to have places and green spaces to be able to feel comfortable in, to be in their environment, and people love that sort of thing. On those. There's a lot more to it, but that'll do for now.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Does anyone else wish to speak either for or against the amendment? Councillor Van Degel.
Now, as a novice councillor and someone that this whole 10 Marlow Road situation has really taken a lot for me to get my head around, is there a potential that instead of creation of proposed Lot A as public open spaces, that particular lot comes under the community consultation? I know this is a question, but can that for now, I don't know if that's how it works, but can we have that if we have a mediator in, that's something that we definitely focus on?
Yep, I think so. Okay, so I'm not going to count that as speaking either for or
Yes,
against the
probably not.
amendment. But if you would like to propose that as another amendment, we're currently dealing with this first amendment.
Sure, well then in a moment I will.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak either for or against the amendment? If not, I'll put that now to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? Three people. Thank you. Against? Five. The amendment has failed. So now we go back to the original motion, which is the substantive motion. So the motion was put by Councillor Buckley, seconded by Councillor Reeves. I don't think that anyone else spoke to it. So I would invite anybody else who wishes to speak either for or against that substantive motion to speak. Councillor Buckley, you have, I don't think, you don't have the right to speak again because you are the mover of the motion. Councillor White?
Just to clarify something, Madam Mayor, I did speak against it. You just spoke that nobody spoke against it, but I did speak against it.
Well, thank
in
you.
order to get the
Thank
amendment.
you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else?
Madam Mayor, can I have a point of clarification, please?
Sure.
In proceeding, is this, before we go to the main motion, is this the opportunity for Councillor Van Diggle to put forward her alternative motion? Amendment to the motion, sorry, to amend to say that that it can come before a mediator.
Yes, I'll accept amendments to the motion. Yes.
Perfect, thank you, sir. I will put forward that we amend the motion that the creation of proposed Lot A as public open space. At the moment, maybe that Lot A, not sure how the wording would be, but that we put Lot A as open to consultation with the mediator to see what the community sentiment is around what should happen with that. Subject to the negotiation proceedings.
Could you say that again clearly, please, so that F currently reads the creation of proposed Lot A as public open space, subject to mediation with the community?
Wording it right now, I'm not 100% sure, so it may be clarification
All right.
Mr. Costa, but I would like to see that what happens with Lot A, there's community consultation with the future of Lot A, whether it's development or open public space.
Perhaps we can seek a bit of advice from the planners here.
I just was going to raise a point. Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Reeves.
Yep, so my point is that I think that all of items A through to G are subject to consultation.
Thank you. So we're just waiting to get some advice from the planners about. Okay. Councillors, I'm suggesting that we might adjourn for 5 minutes while we get some direction here. Can I have a motion to do that? Councillor Reeves, thank you. Seconded Councillor Crook. Is that motion opposed? No. All those in favour? Thank you. We will adjourn for 5 minutes. Thank you. Thank you, councillors, and thank you to everybody watching this live stream, and apologies for the delay. We have required quite a bit of consultation time, but we're now ready to proceed. So we were with Councillor Van Diggle, who had, and you were proposing an amendment, is that right?
Yes.
Would you like to state what your amendment is?
Yes, I believe it's on the screen for everyone to read. So do I just read the changes that I've made? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Section 1, that the debate on this matter be deferred until a future council meeting to allow further negotiation with the proponent to incorporate modifications to the development plan as proposed to 10 Marlow Road prior to the consideration of the matter. Section 2, that prior to council consideration of the matter, the following development plan modifications be negotiated, subject to community consultation with the involvement of the proponent and the support of an external mediator. And then the rest is the same as before.
Thank you, Councillor Van Diggle. So that's the amendment. Do I have a seconder, please?
Oh, wait. Sonia.
Okay. I would like to just check with the mover of the original motion, Sonia, Councillor Buckley. Are you happy with that amendment?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Reeves?
Yes, I'm happy with that amendment too, Mayor.
Thank you. Then that becomes the substantive motion. Councillors, would you like to, so we'll resume debate on the substantive motion, and those councillors who've already debated will be able to speak again. So, Councillor Van Diggle. Councillor Van Diggle, would you like to speak to the amendment? To the substantive motion.
Yeah, I think as all councillors have said, there's been a lot of back and forth communication between councillors and community, some for and against. I think this is it's a game of give and take, and I think we need to learn. I think the proponent needs to have discussions with the community, which I believe that the proponent is aware of the community concerns, but really having that adequate community consultation and potentially some of those aspects that the proponent wants and the community's now raised concerns, there might be able to be some give and take. So I think for us, and this motion we put forward is just making sure that that really does happen and that all parties can come to a resolution that they're happy with. So I think prioritising community engagement between the proponent and having that external mediator is, in my opinion, an effective way to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Van Diggle. Councillor Reeves, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and councillors. Look, this has to be about a vision, and it has to be a shared vision, councillors, for everyone. Development of this scale is 25% of the land product in Marlow. So we have to really get this right. And for this to go ahead, I really think it has to have not just significant, it has to have absolute social, cultural, environmental and economic licence, as well as planning licence to move ahead. And I think by undertaking this process, we're getting much closer to those licences.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Is the motion opposed? No? Does anybody else wish to speak?
Yes, sorry.
Councillor White?
Yes, I was still on mute, sorry. Look, there are still things in here that I can't support this because they're actually statutory requirements. Now, negotiating between the members of the community and the proponent is not going to get a statutory body that's already submitted their requirements to the subdivision to change their mind. So I'm just thinking, there are things in there that just can't be altered, and So we're making a rod for our own back here, and as I said, I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor White. Would anyone else wish to speak for the new motion? For the motion? Councillor Allen, please.
Thank you, Mayor Mendy. Look, I've found this whole process to be very, very challenging, but through it all, with the deluge of emails for and against the proposal, everyone agrees that this needs to happen in some shape or form. And I go back to the motion moved in 2016 that called on the proponent to consult with the community, and I think that needs to happen. That's my view on it, and I really hope that they take this seriously and consult in good faith.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Does anyone else wish to speak against the motion? No? Would anyone else wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Stowe, you wish to speak against the motion?
Yes, look, I agree with John. Look, I think the staff probably got it right in the original motion they put to us, and I don't agree with this. I think it's only delaying it, and I don't think it'll lead anywhere, unfortunately. The project itself needs to go ahead, and I can't see how this will help it. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Does anyone else wish to speak for the motion? Councillor Buckley.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I think that we have to have a positive approach to being able to ensure that, part of our council vision is to put community that the council makes decisions around what the community wants. And I think by doing this, that's exactly, we're going with our council vision. It's very difficult. I wish the proponent every success in being able to move a little more. We're asking more from him, and I understand that's difficult, and we really want him to be successful. And I think sometimes sitting down at the table with someone who can mediate this process, it just may be the breath of air that will clear the room, and that we can move forward as we all want to. So I wish the community and the proponent every success in this matter, and look forward to, hopefully, once those things are clarified, having a positive vote towards the application being accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Does any other councillor wish to speak, either for or against the motion? If not, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? 7. Thank you. Against? Thank you. The motion is carried. We move on in the agenda to item 5.2.2, and it's the planning application number 83/2020/P for 1 Racecourse Road, Lindenau. And I'm going to go to Ms. Pitkin, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your resolution to grant a planning permit for a 3-lot subdivision at 1 Racecourse Road, Lindenau. The salient points of this report for Council to consider are: the application is for a 3-lot subdivision on land zoned township zone, which contains a watercourse. The application was subject to public notification and received some objections, and was further subject to a planning consultation meeting. The permit application was referred to Catchment Management Authority, who initially objected to grant the permit. A revision to the proposal and further investigations regarding stormwater runoff and drainage network was prepared by the permit applicant, finding that the runoff from the property does not worsen the conditions in the Henry Street drainage network. Officer assessment is that the proposal, when considered on its planning merits, is consistent with the East Gippsland planning scheme and is supported, with recommendation for issue of a notice of decision to grant a planning permit with conditions. With me tonight is Nicole Reynolds, Acting Manager Planning, who will be happy to take any questions. The report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Pitkin. Councillors, any questions about this report? Councillor Crook?
Thank you. The original proposal, I think, had the blocks aligned slightly differently. Am I right in thinking that it was at the request of the East Gippsland Catchment Management Authority that the block boundaries be realigned so to contain the watercourse within a single block, and that has in fact happened?
Sorry, my mistake. Robert Pringle is also here. Robert, are you able to answer that question?
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Yes, that was a requirement and a negotiation between East Gippsland Catchment Management Authority and the applicant, and that's the basis for the revised scheme of subdivision, which contains the waterway within a single lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Are there further questions, councillors, about this application? If not, there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Allen. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor White. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor Mendy. Look, I've been out and had a look at this proposed lot. I've read the reports and the complaints were dealt with by the proponent to alleviate community concern, and I think that, you know, that's the way to get these things through. And so I have pleasure in recommending that this one be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor White, you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as with the entire region, we appear, and particularly in areas where people want to live, we do have a shortage of allotments, and Lindenow is no exception. There is a new development out there that has passed, and I think the road and the subdivision has just been completed, and I believe almost all the allotments sold straight away. So therefore, Lindenow is still looking for more allotments, and I do recommend this to the other councillors simply because it may only be 3 allotments, but it's still an area for people to build and you know, live in comfort and be still in an area that's only 12 kilometres from Bainsdale. So if they don't get employment in Lindenow, they've got a chance with a short drive to Bainsdale. So I recommend it simply on economic grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Is the motion opposed? No. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? If not, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.2.3 on our agenda is for planning permit application 23-2013/P/D for 2A Clara Street in Kalimna. And Councillor Reeves has declared a conflict of interest and has left the chamber. I'd now hand over to Ms Pitkin again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your resolution to endorse an officer position to refuse to support an amendment to a planning permit application. The matter has been taken to VCAT as a Section 79 failure to determine by the responsible authority application. The salient points for Council to consider include the application was subject to public notification and received 3 objections. The objectors have previously raised concerns with the development through the parent permit and previous versions of the plan. The objections relate to impact on views and the bulk and scale being inconsistent with the neighbourhood character. The permit application contends that the proposal is a reasonable development hidden by significant foreshore vegetation and not overly bulky. Officers have advised throughout the application process that the proposal is considered out of character and that the proposal does not respect the adjacent lot, which is also being developed and is subject to the same parent permit and Section 173 agreement. The applicant lodged a Section 79 failure to determine application with VCAT in May. Given the officer had proposed to recommend to refuse the amendment in line with Council's planning permit application delegation policy, the matter is now presented before Council to formally adopt a position which will then be presented to VCAT. A practice day hearing, which will allow for the responsible authority to clarify its position, is scheduled for the 25th of June. Mediation and a full hearing date are also tentatively scheduled for late 2021. Also present this evening is Robert Pringle, Statutory Planning Coordinator, who'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. The report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Pitkin. Councillors, any questions, please? No questions? Then there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion? Councillor Allen, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Greason. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor Mendy. I endorse the officer's recommendation. I've been up and inspected the site, and I think the objectors have very valid grounds, and I think the officer's recommendation should be followed.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Greason, you would like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the recommendations are very clear and I don't think require any more discussion, really.
Thank you. Is the motion opposed? Does anyone else wish to speak, either for or against the motion? No? Then I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. I wonder if... yep. Councillor Reeves is just returning to the chamber. And we move on to item 5.2.4, which is for a contract extension, contract 2019126, and we have Ms Weigel, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This contract is an existing contract which was awarded as a 3-year contract as a panel of providers under a schedule of rates allowance. Within the contract, there was provision to extend the contract for up to a further 24 months, subject to council approval. The report before you is therefore a proposal to extend the contract with the 2 panel providers for a period of an additional 12 months. As outlined in the report, the extension for only another 12 months rather than the full 24 months has nothing to do with the quality of the contractors. We're very happy with their work. It is merely so we can align this with another line marking contract which expires at the same time. There is a recommendation before you, and I would be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Any questions, councillors? Straightforward. If there are no questions, there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor White. Seconded, Councillor Buckley. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor White?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, as Ms Weigel's pointed out, these 2 businesses are both well known to the Shire and have done work for the Shire over many years and of good quality. So I would recommend to councillors that we support this extension of a contract for the next 12 months. So we'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Buckley, you'd like to speak to the motion?
I support Councillor White's sentiments, and I look forward to seeing the best roads in Victoria. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Is the motion opposed? Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.2.5 is another contract extension for sealed road rehabilitation of various roads in East Gippsland Shire. Ms Weigel, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Like the report you've just considered, this too is for an extension of an existing contract for our sealed road rehabilitation. It too is a panel contract with a schedule of rates, which was for an initial 3 years, and had a clause in there that allowed it to be extended for a further 24 months, subject to council consideration. There are 3 panel providers on the contract, and we're recommending that all 3 are extended for the full 24 months. They're as detailed in the report. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Are there any questions, councillors? If not, there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Greason. Do you wish to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Greason? Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak either for or against the motion? No. I put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.2.6, another contract extension for curb and channel replacement on various roads in East Gippsland. Ms Weigel, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the third of these type of reports before you tonight. Again, for a panel contract extension. This one was for, as we talked about, the curb and channel replacement, and we had 5 panel providers on the original contract. The contract was for a 3-year period, and again had provision to allow it to be extended for up to a further 24 months. The recommendation before you tonight is to extend the contract for the full 24 months to all 5 contractors on the panel. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Are there any questions, councillors? No questions. There is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion, please? Councillor Stowe, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crook. You'd like to speak to the motion, Councillor Stowe?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crook?
Sure. Look, I think my understanding is that the current contracted panel are doing a good job, and I'm happy to go with the officer's recommendation in this manner.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Is the motion opposed? If not, does anyone else wish to speak either for or against the motion? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.2.7 is green waste processing and removal service for a contract extension also. Ms Weigel, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a contract that we use to manage our green waste at our landfills and transfer stations, so an important contract for council. The contract has provisions within it to allow it to extend it for a period of a further 12 months. There are 2 provisions like this, but they have to exercise one at a time. So therefore, the motion before council tonight, the recommendation is that we extend this green waste processing and removal service contract for the first of those 2 12-month options as outlined in the contract. This is, of course, subject to council's consideration and approval. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Are there any questions? Councillor Reeves. Thank you.
Ms Weigel, I wonder if you can guess what my question is.
I can, councillor.
Would you have any update on the innovative use of green waste and mulch for us in the Shire?
Thank you, and perhaps linked to this contract is that we've had the ability to start to screen our waste. We separate our green waste into that is brought through the green bins and that is brought straight to the site. We've been doing some testing, and we've had the green waste that is brought straight to site tested for microbes and to make sure that it has nothing in there that would stop it being used commercially or within our own services. We've started to use it in our own services and are currently looking at how we may be able to extend that so members of the community and perhaps commercial contractors could also use this mulch. It's a good outcome, I believe.
Terrific, councillors. That'll be a great innovation. 1 trailer load of green waste in, 2 trailer loads of mulch out.
Terrific. Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Crook?
Just to clarify, Fiona, I presume we've also undertaken the same testing on the domestic green waste. Is that the case?
Yes, we're testing both lots. At this stage, there are still some things that are being put in people's green waste bins that really are not green waste, and therefore are polluting that green waste that's being mulched that way. So, sorry, it's getting late. I've forgotten the right term. But yes, it's not at the same level. So we're investigating other ways of dealing with that byproduct from that mulching, so that we can get that to a point where we can reuse it as well.
Okay, thank you. And obviously a bit of a message for our communities there that the things that go in your green waste bin that aren't green waste shouldn't be in your green waste bin, so we can all reuse those products at great benefit to our communities and the environment. So to clarify too, the extension of this contract, that won't affect the reuse of this product and the innovations that are taking place in this space?
No, absolutely not. The waste still needs to be mulched, and this is a service that we undertake through this contractor, who are doing a very satisfactory job.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, councillors? If not, there is a motion in front of you. Thank you, Councillor Reeves. To move the motion, Councillor Crook seconding. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Reeves?
Oh, just to remind us all that our green waste bin collection and free use of our recycling facilities is a really important part of our waste strategy, and this is a really important part of that, is to award this contract. Contractor's done a great job, and I'm happy to keep it going.
Terrific. You'd like to speak to the motion, Councillor Crook?
Just simply to add that this is an area of rapidly increasing innovation, and that our Shire is doing a good job in using what was once a waste stream and is increasingly becoming a resource, and is a great example of how we are moving towards a more circular economy where things don't get thrown away, they get recreated and further purposed for additional use.
Indeed, thank you. Is the motion opposed? Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor White.
Oops, we've got to work this mute thing. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. It just so happens, I said I wouldn't report on the ELGA conference, but today the discussion, one of the speakers was all about the circular economy, so I'm just would like to add just how important and what a massive issue this, you know, the use or the recycle of our waste, and how into the future it's going to become such a problem. So if we get in on the ground floor early and keep utilising the new technologies, I think that puts us in a good place to be able to do our waste management with minimal in the ground, you know, into the landfill pits, which is basically something that just has to be eliminated. So the more we do in this space, the better off our council and our environment will be.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor White. Would anyone else wish to speak either for or against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion to the vote now. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.2.8 is a contract for Bailey Street Reconstruction. And we have, again, Ms Weigel. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As our councillors and community would be aware, Bailey Street represents an important street within our CBD network here in Bainsdale. Those of you who have been down the street recently would see it's starting to have some fairly significant issues with pavement and with the footpath networks as well. This has meant that it's fairly high on our priority of list for major rehabilitation works. And through some additional funding that we had made available through the federal government, we've been able to bring this project forward. And it has now been through a full design process, and we've been out to tender. And the report before you tonight is to award the tender for those reconstruction works. The full reconstruction of this part of the road network between Princes Highway and McLeod Street would be to reconstruction of the footpath, curb and channel, underground draining and infrastructure, road pavement and landscaping with new trees. We're also in the process of incorporating public art into the street as well. So it will certainly improve this part of the CBD. We have a recommendation within the confidential attachment. The confidential attachment also outlines the tender evaluation process that we've been through and the recommendations of the tender evaluation panel. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillors, just to take note that okay, I do see a couple of hands there. Thank you. You do have the recommended motion in front of you, and also as there is a confidential report that is available to councillors also, but if we want to discuss that, we'll need a motion to go into camera to do that. So we have Councillor White, please, and then Councillor Stowe for questions.
Thank you, Mayor. The question that was asked at briefing, I'm not sure whether I got the right answer, and I'm thinking Councillor Stowe may be on the same page here, but will the redevelopment create any more car parking to alleviate some of the pressure on the CBD? Will a redesign of the the spacings or the centre of the road parking create any extra car parks, please?
I believe it will create at least 2 additional car parks. So there certainly will be no removal of car parks, and there will be a small addition in the number of car parks provided.
That's a very welcome answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Stowe, you had a question?
Yes, thank you, and congratulations, Fiona. 2 more parks, most welcome, well done. This is a significant street in the retail sector of Bainsdale, and this is a significant amount of work to be done there. Have businesses been consulted, and are they on side?
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. The businesses in the immediate area have been consulted and will continue to be consulted throughout. The broader business community and the broader public was consulted when we went through a fairly significant master planning process for Bainsdale 4 or 5 years ago now, reimagining Bainsdale. So this work is consistent with the master plan that was adopted by Council at the time. As we get into the detailed design, we of course talk to our local businesses and those that are within the immediate vicinity. It's also going to be very important throughout the process, the construction process, that the recommended contractor continues to have regular negotiations with those businesses, and that's actually written in and stipulated in the contract, and one of the things that we assess tenderers on. There will also be broader consultation and updates to the community, and every effort will be made to make sure that the impact is minimalised both on those businesses and on the broader community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. I understand that the removal of the big tree will be something that the community perhaps won't may not appreciate because of the shade aspect, but obviously the roots are causing the cause of a lot of the damage in that street. But there are plans to plant other trees.
That's right. Certainly, there is a very old plane tree. It's not an Indigenous tree, but it's certainly an old and very shady tree in that part of the street. The advice we have is that any work on its in and around the root system will actually impact the tree and probably end up with killing it slowly. So the decision has been made to remove it now and perhaps to use some of that timber to construct some public art in space. And we're actually talking to some artists about that right now and make sure that we're planting additional trees to replace the street trees and that shade as part of the project. So yes, it's unfortunate, but we will make sure that there are new trees that go in that will create shade in the future.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Councillor Buckley, please. You're muted, Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms Weigel, it's obviously a very needed proposal to have happen. Were all of the businesses that contacted, were they all positive, or were there any negative responses in regards to having this go ahead?
Look, I wasn't the individual who contacted the businesses, but I am informed that they were all positive. They understood there would be some disruption. They're obviously concerned that that disruption is minimised, but they are welcoming the improvements to that street. They see that that will have some positive flow-on effects for their businesses.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, councillors. If there are no further questions, there is a recommendation there. Councillor Stowe, you'd like to move the recommendation? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Councillor White seconding. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Stowe?
Sure, the retailers are happy, the customers are happy, and I'm happy. I think we should go ahead with this necessary work.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Councillor White?
Well, I was just with Councillor Senior Officer here, of course, in Canberra, and I was just saying I think there was an old saying about short-term pain, excuse me, for long-term gain. So it's a benefit to well into the future for the community in that precinct.
Thank you, Councillor White. Is the motion opposed? Does anybody else wish to speak for or against the motion? No, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.2.
Mayor, just a point of order.
Yes, Councillor Reeves.
Mayor, we're approaching 3 hours of this meeting, and I think that we actually need a resolution to continue forward and upward, councillors.
Certainly, we've got our eye on the clock, Councillor Reeves. We probably will go over, but perhaps we'll get a couple, see if we can work a little bit further along on the agenda, and then we'll need a motion to continue.
I think we need a motion to continue after 3 hours, technically. Yep, so it's 9 minutes until 3 hours.
Okay.
Part of it, isn't it?
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a excuse me. I have a point of order. Also, I may be wrong, but don't we have to discuss the actual tenderer and go into camera for this for the Bailey Street?
No, Councillor White. The resolution is up on the board. That's the motion that we've just passed. The confidential report was available to all councillors, but it was confidential.
Thank you. I'm just probably suggesting it's a long way from Bainsdale to Canberra. The message didn't get through. Sorry.
Okay. Item 5.2.9 on our agendas is the draft road management plan, and we have Ms Weigel for this one too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As councillors know, we have almost 3,000 kilometres of local road network, which East Gippsland Shire Council is the coordinating road authority for. Therefore, under the Road Management Act, we must have a road management plan that outlines council's management responsibilities and details the standards of road maintenance services for the roads within the municipality for which we are responsible. Council must periodically review this under the Act, so we choose to align that review with the first year of the new council term, with this plan most recently being reviewed in September 2017. As part of the review of the plan this time, we took the opportunity to simplify the plan. It was quite lengthy and perhaps cumbersome, and take out the detail that didn't need to be there, which we also looked at the recent recommendations of the Auditor General, the Victorian Auditor General's Office. We also did some benchmarking against other like councils with like similar sized road networks and similar sized budgets to make sure we were developing standards and service levels of a similar level. So that had led to some changes to the road management plan, which are outlined in the attachment 2. You can see the track changes. We then took this plan out on public exhibition, and we received one formal submission, which was really about one of the roads that someone wanted to see upgraded rather than the plan itself. So having gone through that process, we're now in a position where we can present the draft road management plan as edited and as revised to Council for formal consideration. It will then need to be authorised as per the recommendations before you. Should you adopt the plan, it would then need to be placed in the Government Gazette or notices to advise the broader public that it is our new plan. We'd also make sure that it is available on our website. So it has been quite an extensive process. It is a very important plan for us. It's important that it also aligns with our road management contract, which we have recently revised and have new contracts in place. So there's been quite a bit of work that has gone into making sure the standards that can be met. Of course, these are the minimum standards that we set. We would also strive to go above these standards, but this outlines the minimum standards that we will we give a guarantee to our community that we will meet in the way we maintain our roads. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Weigel. Councillors, are there any questions? No? No questions? If not, there is a recommendation in front of you, councillors. Do I have a motion? Councillor Buckley. Councillor Buckley, you're muted.
Sorry, I had a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
I just noticed when we were going through this particular document that it's gone from probably what was in the beginning standards that weren't able to be met because they were of the, possibly impractical, to the minimum standard. And I was a little concerned because I think when you go to minimum standards, then sometimes that's all that would be met because that's all that's required. So I think something that was more moderate or in the middle, I would have been preferred to support. It's more a comment than that might be taken into consideration when councillors vote. That's all.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Certainly that was taken into consideration, and that's why we did the benchmarking against like councils to make sure that the standards we were setting, and they are our minimum standards, and these are standards that we would strive to exceed, but they are our minimum standards, are similar to standards of like councils, both our neighbouring council, Wellington, but other councils of a similar size with a similar road network. We also took consideration of the Auditor General's, the Victorian Auditor General's report, which really strongly urged councils to make sure that their road management plan was achievable and outlaid the litigation risks to councils if they had standards that they could not achieve. So based on that is why we have made some changes to the standard. But we're confident with our new approach to road maintenance and our new road maintenance contracts that with these are standards that have become our minimum, and we will be seeking to meet and exceed these standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I might just pause. Apologies, councillors. I should have listened to Councillor Reeves before. We just need to take a pause because we are almost at the 3-hour limit of our meeting. We need to just have a motion, please, that we continue. We have got 3 more items after the current one. So if I could have a motion from a councillor that we continue until beyond the 3 hours, that would be great. Thank you, Councillor Allen. You'd like to move the motion? You're happy to second. Councillor Crook, thank you. Is the motion opposed? No, I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. So apologies for that interruption. So Councillor Buckley, you're happy with that response to your question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, councillors? If not, there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Crook. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Greason. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure, given the hour, I'll try and keep it brief. I receive a lot of correspondence about roads. When people talk to me in the street, a lot of the time it's about roads. That's because roads are one of the main things that this council does. It is a monumentally large responsibility. We live in a huge shire. And just to have it on the record, we have 1,264 kilometres of sealed road that we are charged with maintaining. We have 1,694 kilometres of unsealed road that we are charged with maintaining. We have a total of 2,958 kilometres of roads. This is key infrastructure for a region such as ours. It's a monumental task. It's not easy. It costs a lot of money. And I think, given the complexities of it all, we actually do a pretty good job. So I recommend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor Greason, you'd like to speak to the motion?
I couldn't possibly add to that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is the motion opposed? Does anyone else wish to speak either for or against the motion? Councillor Buckley.
I think I spoke with my question before. I just feel that that we could have gone to a better, a best management practice on this, and I think that putting the benchmark at the lower end, I just don't support that as a management tool. But I do agree with Tom that we've got aspirations, and I hope that regardless of this management plan, that's the aspirations they'll go to.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Are you speaking against the motion?
Correct.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? Then you have the right of reply. Councillor Crook.
Thank you. I'll just make the point that a minimum standard is not the minimum that we can, is not the lowest possible outcome for the roads. A minimum standard actually implies a certain standard that makes those roads usable and trafficable and safe. It doesn't mean that they're kept in the worst possible minimal condition. It means there is a minimum quality of standard that is assured within the road network. So I appreciate too, Councillor Buckley, that I've driven on some roads that are, bit of room for improvement, most certainly. And I know I hear that from some of our residents as well. But by and large, our road network is well maintained. And those minimum standards reflect both the legal requirements and the standards expected by the community on the whole. So I agree, there's always room for improvement, but I do think that we're doing a good job.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. I'll now put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 5.3.1 on our agenda is the East Gippsland Business Awards 2021 funding allocation, and we have Mr. McConnell with us from Canberra. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors.
You're on mute.
The item I've got, before you is simply seeking an allocation of funding from the Economic Development Discretion.
Oh, Mr. McConnell, you are muted for some reason. Both of them.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. The item before you is an item to approve the allocation of funding from the Economic Development Discretionary Fund to support the 2021 East Gippsland Business Awards. And the recommendation before you relates to that allocation of funding. We've briefed you previously in relation to the proposal to progress the business awards for 2021 and then to review the awards and their delivery subsequent to that, recognising that the awards have been delivered over a number of years previously by Business and Tourism East Gippsland, and that organisation no longer exists, and the awards didn't run last year as in reflection of the COVID and other challenges. The funding will provide a capacity to run the awards, recognising that at this stage, whilst the sponsorship interest is looking promising, there is the risk of sponsorship being lower in this year, given the COVID and bushfires and other challenges in our community. But we recognise that there's an opportunity here to really celebrate the businesses of East Gippsland, and so the officers recommend the allocation of funding as indicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions? If not, there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Greeson. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Reeves?
I'd love to speak to the motion. I think these awards are really, really important. I've attended a number of them, pardon me, both locally and regionally. And I think in this particular time, when we've been so isolated and haven't had the ability to connect well, there's a really important function in getting businesses together to rejoin. It's as much about emotional and business mental health as it is about celebrating success. They really do allow the businesses to get together to celebrate their achievements, their innovation and their best practices. And they're just a good thing to do. Sometimes you actually need to celebrate the work that you've done. And I think to do that collectively is really, really important. I think also, councillors, businesses spend a lot of time working in the business, and it's a great opportunity to look at their business and to celebrate the work that they've done on the business as well.
Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Greeson, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, just to say that I think that everyone needs acknowledgement for their achievements and their excellent work, and so I support this award. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the motion opposed? Councillor Stowe, you'd like to speak to that?
Yes, thanks. Look, we're talking about $50,000 or up to $50,000, which is a significant amount of money. I think that money could be used better elsewhere. The money, for example, could be given to East Gippsland Marketing to do an advertising campaign. You get a significant advertising campaign that would tend to benefit all businesses in the East Gippsland region, rather than just a handful of businesses that are having basically what is just a night out and a photo op for the local paper for one or two of them. I don't think it's good value for money, and I'd like to see the money used elsewhere.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Would anyone else wish to speak in support of the motion? Anyone else wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Van Diegel?
I agree with Councillor Stowe. I think in the past I would have been more supportive of this event, but given the past year, I'd like to see the money spent elsewhere. I think we've spoken, or Councillor Stowe and I have spoken a few times about whether or not it's in our capacity to offer courses for businesses to move their business online, so that they can make the most of the e-commerce world that we're now living in. It's not probably in our department, but whether it's rent assistance or, I just feel that $50,000, given the year that we've just had, I think it could be spent a lot more wisely. I agree that getting together and acknowledging and celebrating the work of local businesses and having a fun night out at the expense of council might seem appealing, but I just think that money, it's a lot of money, could be spent elsewhere to support our businesses. So I'm not in support of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Van Diegel. Does anybody else wish to speak either for or against the motion? Councillor Reeves, you'd like the right of reply?
Yeah, look, councillors, I think it's a bit of a shame to hear that from especially some of our councillors around the table. This is the year that's actually even more important to spend this money to reconnect with these people. These businesses have done it hard. There are plenty of programs around that help develop those business excellence, and there is an absolute time and a place for people to get together and celebrate and recognise the hard work that's been done. In terms of the council budget, it's a fraction of a percent of the 138 million. And I think that, we don't want to be seen as the business Grinch. I think that we can actually support business in many ways. And we know that even in community recovery, having a celebratory barbecue by people getting together seems like a really insignificant thing. But we know how important that is in terms of recovery. And on this occasion, I think getting the businesses together and a fraction of the business, our operating budget, to celebrate and recognise and to get people out of their businesses and to recognise what's going on is a terribly important... The things that are going on that are good despite the challenges we've had is a really important time. It pulls people together from right across the Shire. It also isn't just about a night out on the town. It actually requires members of the community to nominate businesses, which means that people stop and think and write down and recognise the great work that's being done. And I've done it a couple of times with our local businesses. And I would urge you, councillors, when you are thinking about this, that here's your great opportunity to not just think about a night out in the town, but to actually write down and nominate, hey, that business, you've done a great job. I'm going to actually nominate you and put you on the list, and you'll be there recognised.
Expensive barbecue, councillor.
Councillor Stowe, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Reeves. I will now put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Thank you, the motion is carried. Item 5.4.1 is the request for Council to enter an agreement with East Gippsland Water for water supply upgrades to the South Bainsdale Industrial Estate. Yeah. And I don't know who we've got, sorry. Oh, Mr. Cannizzaro.
Oh, he's got to talk to it first. No.
Is it? Oh, it's Stuart. Oh, beg your pardon. Mr. McConnell. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Again, you've been briefed previously in the challenges associated with the water supply.
Oh, it's happened again. That mute button.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor and councillors. You've been briefed previously in relation to the South Bainsdale Industrial Estate and the challenges associated with the water supply there and the impact that has on investment in that region or in that area of South Bainsdale. As you're aware, we've been working with East Gippsland Water towards a solution to that, and the next step in that process is for Council to enter into a formal agreement with East Gippsland Water to undertake the works associated with that, resolving the issue. And so before you have an agreement for your endorsement, and the recommendations are in front of you. Once subject to the decision of Council tonight, the agreement will then be considered by the East Gippsland Water, and once they've considered the agreement, we will then bring back a recommendation for Council to formally commence the special charge scheme, which is the process of that will be used to contribute some of the funding for the project. So with that background, I will take any questions. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Councillor White, please. Did you have a question? Or you wanted to...
I'm not sure what's going on. I've already been reprimanded and told to step away from the mouse.
Yes, we can't work it out either, but anyway.
I'll let it go for the minute. I was actually waving and I've got ahead of the game.
Okay. Are there any questions about this this report, please, councillors? No questions? Then there is a recommendation in front of you, and I'm going to take Councillor White to move the motion, and seconder Councillor Stowe. Thank you. Councillor White, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. And I actually think that I was pipped at the post there. Trevor broke the ribbon before me. But anyway, I'll take the decision, umpire's decision. I'm happy with that. This has been going on for such a long time, and it's actually got to the stage now, and I hope that our correspondence does not take as long as some of the correspondences that were spoken about at the beginning of the meeting. I hope that Australia Post gets our letters to and from East Gippsland Water very quickly, because there are businesses now that are actually being put under substantial strain as a result of this water not being, the mains not being laid. So I would just urge everybody still in the decision making here to get it done, and get it done as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Stowe, you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, this issue's been in the too hard basket for far too long, and I'm pleased to report the current staff, led by Stuart, have got off their bums and have got something done about it, and they've done a really good job doing that. The business people are very happy up in the estate that this is going to result, so good on you, Stuart, and your team, and Council, please get behind it and support it.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Is the motion opposed? Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the motion? If not, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. The motion is carried. The last item on the agenda this evening is item 5.4.2, and it's a proposed road renaming of Lanes Road. And we have Mr Cannizzaro, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled Proposed Road Naming Lanes Road, which is seeking endorsement for the proposal to rename a section of Lanes Road to Bosses Road. The key points of the report for you to consider, councillors, is firstly, Lanes Road is not a through road, and the naming rules for places in Victoria require that a new unique name must be applied to one end of that road. As a result of an incident reported by the Bainsdale Fire Brigade back in August 2019, Council has undertaken a process required by the Geographic Names Victoria to rename one section of that road. Through a consultation process, general support was indicated for the name Bosses Road for the section from the Princess Highway at Nicholson to Middle Creek. It should also be noted that the property addresses along the retained section of Lanes Road from the Great Alpine Road to Middle Creek will also need to be renumbered. Tonight online we have both Liz Collins and Kylie Mitchell, who have worked tirelessly over the last dozen or so months to get to this state. So I present the report and the recommendations to councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Cannizzaro. Are there any questions, firstly, councillors? No questions? Then there is a recommendation in front of you. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Reeves. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Stowe?
Yes, very briefly. I've spoken to a couple of the people that live up on the road that's going to have the name changed, and they said they'd really prefer not to have it changed, that the other end should be the one that's changed. But seeing it's going to happen, they were very complimentary of the staff and the way they'd handled the consultation, and they were happy with the name change, so I've got no problem either, and happy to move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. Councillor Reeves, you wish to speak to the motion? No. Is the motion opposed? Yes, Councillor White.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I do oppose this motion because being in the last council, those residents were strongly opposed to the name change, and I was given poor advice from officers when I went out to meet with those people who were objecting at the time, and it was unfortunate because I led them to believe that there was a way around this, and there actually still is a way around this, that the road be opened. Now, I've been given advice of the extreme cost. I disagree with those estimates. It does not have to be a two-lane bitumen road. It can be single-lane gravel with a concrete pad through Middle Creek. Now, going back to the beginning of our meeting about the length of time it takes to get back to people, a person who was an objector wrote a letter last November and received a reply yesterday to to his, this was about another matter on Lanes Road, and it was about the subdivisions on the northern end that are allowing no vehicle, no decent carriageway because of the width of the road. Now that road has got 2 SEC lines, one on either side. The letter states that council will be widening the road. I look at that as an unbelievably costly exercise because a power line has to be moved. In this instance, I would have recommended that there's a very large subdivisional area there and that a service road be put in at the expense of the subdividers. So I fail to see how something in the hundreds of thousands of dollars could be disapproved for making Lanes Road a through road, and yet we could look at millions of dollars for the northern end to be widened. So I just feel that we have not supported those residents, and I look in the briefing to say there were options 1 and 2, which is not in the recommendation, it's at the bottom of the briefing. And option 2, continue with the current situation of a duplicated road name and not address the confusion with street addressing. This has the potential to expose council to the risk of being negligent and not complying with council's obligations under the naming rules. Now, that has existed in that situation for decades. And I know this for a fact, it's decades that that's existed like that, and council has not been has not been brought to account for any reason because that road does not go through. So I'm not supporting this, and I'm sticking up for the people who live at the Boss's Swamp end of the road, that they should not be, I think, extremely disadvantaged with a name change because of all the complications and all the work they have to do to get their new addresses. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think we've treated those people well enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Does anybody else wish to speak for the motion or against the motion? Councillor Stowe, you have the right of reply if you wish to use it. Sorry,
Yes,
Councillor Buckley. Sorry.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Buckley has her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Buckley. Councillor Buckley, you're muted.
My apologies, everyone. Gosh. Look, I support Councillor White on this one because I do believe that he's quite right. I have a little bit of the corporate memory when my father, previous Councillor Buckley, accompanied John to look at this particular issue, and he is of the same view. And so are many in the community about this, and I think that we should take the option at this point to the second option, to do nothing at this point until those other issues that John has raised tonight are dealt with. So I'm against this motion on those grounds. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Does anyone else wish to speak either for or against the motion? If not, then Councillor Stowe, you have the right of reply.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Look, let me describe the road. It's a narrow, winding gravel road that runs parallel to the highway. And the people I spoke to up the eastern end of it, who are affected by the name change, they don't want the road put all the way through because they don't want it made an alternate road to the highway where people are taking a shortcut, if you like, or a quicker option, which will put more traffic on that small gravel winding road. They're happy with the way it is, and also to make it a through road would involve significant expense with the bridge anyway, so it doesn't make any sense to spend that money in view of the light amount of traffic that go over at the moment, and it's to our and their advantage to keep that traffic light.
Thank you, Councillor Stowe. I'll now put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? 7. Okay, and against? Thank you. The motion is carried. I believe we've come to the end of our agenda. Is that true? Oh, yes. Oh, we might ask that, mightn't we? Do we have any other urgent and other business, please, Mr. CEO?
There isn't any, Mayor.
Thank you. And confidential business?
Nope.
Thank you. Then I will close the meeting. Thank you very much to all the councillors and the executive and those who've participated remotely and the support staff who've made this meeting happen. It's been quite a long meeting, required a lot of attention and persistence. So thank you all very much.